Welcome to IVF This, episode 79, The Power of Permission. Welcome to IVF This. I'm your host, Emily Ginn. After 10 years of primary and secondary infertility due to both male and female factor infertility, I am now the mother to 3 beautiful miracles. I am married to my favorite person in the world. I'm a social worker, a life coach, and an IVF warrior. I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and emotions during your IVF journey, to break free from anxiety and regain control of your life, even in the midst of infertility. I'm going to teach you how to say IVF this to how we think about, talk about, and experience infertility. Let's go. Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you are all having a lovely, lovely day. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you are treating yourself well. And I'm really excited because today we are talking about permission. I love this topic so much because it's something I don't think that many of us really think about. I think the vast majority of us think about permission within the context of like work, or if you have kids, then you're giving them permission, consent, approval, whatever, for that person to then do something, right? At least that's how typically I view permission. However, there's an aspect of permission that I think is rarely explored, or self-explored rather, because like many of the things that we experience in our culture, we hear key phrases or platitudes like, give yourself permission. But most of us are like, what the hell does that even mean? And why? What are the things that we give ourselves permission for? What are the things that we don't give ourselves permission for? Maybe we feel like permission to do something isn't really even an option. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. I want to talk about why it's so important and then give you some ideas as to what we actually talk about. Like, what are examples of things you can give yourself permission for? Okay, so the practice of giving yourself permission is the act of reasserting autonomy back over your life. In so many ways, your brain holds you back from doing things because it fears that it's doing something wrong. It fears failing. It fears making the wrong decision. But what if there's no wrong decision, right? Wrong in air quotes. What if it's that you make a decision and the result is either you get the outcome you expected / hope for, or you don't? See, because we only judge our decisions based on the ending. And based on that ending, we then place a moral judgment upon the decision, classifying it as either right or wrong. But it's neither. It's just a decision that we make where we get what we expected / hope for, or we don't. So when we give ourselves permission, you're speaking to that primitive part of your brain that's afraid, that's keeping you locked in, that's keeping you stuck. You're kind of letting yourself off the hook for that black and white thinking of right and wrong. And that is why permission is so powerful. So here's a list of things that I think we can give ourselves permission for. Number 1, being human. Being human is tough. It is painful and often confusing. And sometimes, like during infertility, it can feel completely intolerable. Give yourself permission to be human, to be messy, to be confused, to be human. Number 2, to say no to things. This goes for things that people ask of you, but also for things that you ask of yourself. If you have someone in your life that is asking something of you and doing so would be at the cost of something for yourself, it's okay to say no. We can say no lovingly. Maybe your fertility doctor wants you to continue on the same protocol, but you don't want to. For whatever reason, you don't have to justify. No is a complete sentence. Maybe your partner is wanting you to move forward with the transfer and you're not quite ready yet. Maybe your family or friends are placing time demands on you while you're going through treatment. Maybe a friend invited you to a shower or a gender reveal. Again, you can lovingly say no. No does not have to come from a place of anger or resentment. You can love yourself and someone else at the same time, all while saying no. If you worry that person might be upset with you, it's possible they might, but that is for them to carry. And if that no makes them not like you, well, then the only reason they liked you to begin with was because you always said yes. And I know that there are a lot of people pleasers out there that might need some time to digest this, and that's okay. Again, one of my favorite things in the entire world, no is a complete sentence. Now, saying no to yourself is something that I'm going to cover in the next 2 points. So I will break that down. So number 3 is taking a break/rest. We have been raised in this hyperproductive, outcomes-only metric that has completely skewed how we see rest. Rest is viewed as laziness to the external world and in our own world, in our own brain. How many people do you know have like 2 and 3 side hustles? This isn't a jab at side hustles, but when you are physically, emotionally, financially, and psychologically pushing yourself to the brink, because if you don't, you're just going to beat yourself up. When you inevitably collapse, then you're still going to beat yourself up. Like there's no reprieve because the issue is in how you view rest. And then taking time off from fertility treatment, that can also feel dangerous. There is a lot of time scarcity with treatments that creates this huge sense of urgency. Now, often I see women that have questioned for years, and I emphasize years, if they should take a break from treatments temporarily, permanently. They have completely burned themselves out. Or maybe you decide to take a break and that feels good at first, like a sense of relief, and then a bit of time goes on and you start feeling that discomfort, like that feeling of urgency or FOMO or whatever. A lot of times we interpret that to mean that it's time for us to get back at it, go back to treatment, even when we're questioning our readiness to do so. So another part of permission to take a break is that we give ourselves permission for that break. Give ourselves permission to be human in that moment when we have a very normal human response. And all of those thoughts come up like, I'm getting older every second. What if I miss out on the perfect time to get pregnant? I know that there's a lot of questions in the US fertility community about what kind of impacts the overturning of Roe v. Wade is going to have. This is not a discussion about abortion. This is a reference that IVF has never existed in a non-Roe v. Wade world. Roe was passed in 73 and the first IVF baby was born in 78. So that is what I'm referencing, all kinds of uncertainty around that topic. But I digress. Getting back to the example of taking a break when you're feeling uncomfortable, giving yourself permission to feel that discomfort. It's going to be there anyway, friends. And to resist it will only make it feel that much worse. So remind yourself of, yeah, this is totally normal to feel this, and I still get to decide when to start or resume treatments. It's always my decision, not my brain's BS that decides that for me. I can give myself permission to take a break if I want to resume if I want to, and to feel human along the way. Number 4, permission to trust yourself. Now, this goes back to what we were just talking about, trusting yourself to make the best decision about when and how to get treatments, to take a break from treatment, and when maybe even to walk away from treatment. You've likely heard me talk about the diet and beauty industries, culture, socialization, and patriarchy have all combined to kind of cultivate this deep sense of self-distrust for everyone, but particularly women. This distrust is only nurtured, and I'm using that term a little bit ironically, as we grow from young children into adolescence, our teenage years, our young adulthood, and into adulthood. There isn't a time in our lives where we aren't exposed to harmful messaging that is meant to make us believe that all of the answers to our problems are outside of ourselves, right? That's what it all boils down to. This product or this thing is the answer to whatever is bothering you because you can't trust yourself to have the answer. Our internal GPS is constantly overpowered and drowned out by messaging that reinforces this divide between our internal knowledge and what is being marketed to us. I was talking to one of my clients that was really struggling with her partner. There's been a lot of friction lately between them, and one of the things that comes up is that her partner feels that my client blames them for their infertility. This is a situation where there's kind of unknown infertility, right? That 33% bucket of yuck that some of us experience. And there are some social and behavioral things from her partner that my client feels might contribute to their infertility. Now, she freely admits that This by no means is certain. She doesn't have any proof. But as we talked about, her brain needs somewhere to go with this blame. And this is completely normal. But when they argue with their partner would say things like, "You're saying this or doing this because you blame me for our situation." And during our session, I asked a couple of times if she felt like that was true. And at first, like all of us would do, she denied it. Intellectually, we don't want to blame the person we love and care for most in this world, certainly not for what we're experiencing the most pain for. But it is a completely normal thing to do. Once we went through a few think, feel, do cycles, we got to a point where she was able to admit to herself that, yeah, she does harbor some resentment. There is a little bit of blame there. And I got to tell you, friends, the look of relief on her face when she admitted it was noticeable. From that moment, she trusted herself enough to admit the truth, to listen to that inner voice and admit something that did not feel good. Now, there was some shame that was created based on her admitting that, and a lot of based on how she perceived resentment, right? Because cultural and social messaging tell us that resentment is a terrible thing. So we talked through all of that stuff. But I think that this is such a telling example of there being a lot of things that we keep stuffed down because we don't trust ourselves to admit, because we don't give ourselves permission to admit. We think that if we admit it to ourselves, then we might act on it. Like if I say the scary part out loud, it will somehow take over. When it's actually the exact opposite. She was lashing out at her partner because she wasn't saying the scary part out loud. Now, when I say out loud, I don't necessarily mean to her partner. She doesn't have to say that to her partner, but say it to herself to admit, because she wasn't acknowledging it, because she was trying to deny it and stuff it down. She didn't trust herself enough to know that by saying it, admitting it, and owning it, even if it's just to herself, she actually has power over it instead of it having power over her. I think another facet of this is the distrust we develop between our bodies during fertility treatment. There's a lot of "my body failed me" belief systems that we grab onto during this journey. That thought, oh my gosh, that thought is one of the biggest sources of pain throughout this experience. Now, let's remember that this likely did not just pop into your head because of infertility. Some semblance of this thought has likely been there, and again, reinforced through social messaging for the majority of our lives. Think things like weight loss, or even if you compete or have competed in a sport and weren't as successful as you expected to be. Hell, even when we're freaking trying on clothes, it's more about our bodies not being what we want from them rather than the clothes not being right for our bodies. That is how far we can take the distrust of our bodies. That we put more stock in a garment, ladies, than ourselves. When the truth is that our body failing us is a thought. It is a really powerful thought. I would argue a very believable thought, but it doesn't make it any more true. Go back to before you were trying to conceive, when the whole goal was to not get pregnant, right? At least that was the goal for me. So the times when maybe we weren't as vigilant with preventative measures and there was a potential for a possible pregnancy, but you didn't get pregnant, you didn't walk around saying "my body failed me." No. You, if you were anything like me, probably walked around like, "Whoo, dodge that bullet." If that was the case, because it absolutely was for me, then your body failing you because it wasn't getting pregnant or staying pregnant isn't some personal failing of your body. It's not a universal truth. What it is an incredibly painful thought. When we are faced with a challenge to our belief system, like how quote unquote easy it is to get pregnant, it's very easy then in turn to blame ourselves. So we do that as a way of trying to make sense of what's happening, but it doesn't make it true, ever. Okay, number 5, give yourself permission to explore options. A lot of individuals going through fertility treatments think that there are certain things that are the only things that are available. Life rarely works that way. So let's take an example of our doctors. There are some doctors that we completely jive with and those that we do not, just like people. But that does not mean that we have to stay with that doctor for the entirety of our journey. We can explore our options. We can decide that we want to try a different doctor or a different clinic or a different protocol, or we can decide if we don't want to. Either way, give yourself permission to explore what else might be out there. Maybe you want to seek out guidance from alternative medicine. Maybe you haven't before because your doctor or your clinic doesn't really ascribe to that. Good for them. They aren't you. You can give yourself permission to seek out second opinions, naturopaths, acupuncture, reproductive immunology, energy healing, dietitians, therapy, coaching, whatever you choose, even if someone does not agree with it. In this journey, I fully believe that we have nothing to lose. And if nothing more than peace of mind is gained, well, friends, come on, that is worth more than you can possibly imagine. Number 6, and lastly, number 6. Give yourself permission to invest in yourself. This can go along with a number 5 too, because we're taught from very early on that we have to be all things to every person in our life, which means putting our needs on the back burner. We tell ourselves that we'll get to what we want and need, but let's be honest, that never really happens because we always find a need that is more urgent outside of us. Investing in yourself can look like a million different things. It can mean education, training, a day off from your normal responsibilities, a trip or experience, a cleaning person for your house, all the things I mentioned above, therapy, coaching, acupuncture, hell, some of us probably walk around with clothes that don't fit well because we don't feel like we have the right to invest in a wardrobe. Even well-fitting underwear, ladies. Some of y'all just be walking around pulling panties out of your ass all day long, then take time and a little bit of extra money to buy yourself underwear that feels good. And I've literally spoken to clients who do this. So this is not hyperbole, friends. It's not. People do this. And fertility treatments are costly. I'm not suggesting that you have complete financial freedom to do whatever the hell pops into your brain, but you don't have to sacrifice everything in pursuit of this dream. And everything does include your own happiness and comfort. Do you know the number one reason people contact a coach like me but decide not to work with them? Most of us would say money, right? That's the natural impulse. But it's actually the fear that we'll spend the money and not trust ourselves to make the changes or to do the work. They tell themselves stories about how they invested in a gym membership 10 years ago and then never went and wasted all that money. And then like one or two of those types of things in our lives have defined how we view investing in ourselves. They've made that mean that they're not good at investing in themselves or that they fail when they try to. Like all of this BS that isn't even relevant to your current situation. And so much of this is the internalized belief that investing in themselves is wrong or selfish. It's not. You have every right to treat yourself well because I guarantee you if someone you loved needed something, your ass would be the first in line to take care of them. Turn that mirror towards yourself. Love yourself the way that you love other people, and why not? You're freaking amazing. You know, all the people that you love, that you think are amazing, well, they love you back because you are amazing. That's what attracted those amazing people into your life in the first place. You, my beautiful friend. It was you all along. So it's okay to invest in yourself. In the words of Donna Meagle from Parks and Rec, treat yourself. It's one of my favorite shows in the entire world. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's be honest, this is by no means an exhaustive list. So this is by no means an exhaustive list, right? We can understand that. So if you do any paper thinking, and if you're new here, that's what I call journaling, then I want you to spend a little bit of time and listen, 2 to 5 minutes tops. Write down the things that are specific to you. What can you give yourself permission for? What can you give yourself permission to do? What can you give yourself permission to feel? What can you give yourself permission to think? I'm going to leave you with this one last thought. Permission is this beautiful gift you give to yourself. Permission gives you the gift of possibility. It reminds you that you can be open to possibilities, that you don't have to stay stuck. Permission allows you to open up to some amazing possibilities for your life. Without permission, there is no change. There's no growth. And that is what I want for each and every one of you, to experience the possibilities, to experience a change, to know that there is a different way to live this journey. So that is what I have for you today, my friends. Have a beautiful week, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of IVF This. If you like what you've heard, click subscribe and follow to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want to learn more, head over to www.ivfthiscoaching.com to learn how to work together.